I watched this Italian movie called The Cormorants, and I've honestly never seen a more aimless movie. I mean, I've seen plenty of movies where the script, is fluffy at best, but this is something else. And yet there's a certain peaceful element to it. So, I'm assuming that the point of the movie wasn't the complex script or anything, because of course it wasn't complex. It's the last thing it was. But then again, I'm not entirely sure what the point really is. You know, I mean, you'd think something was going to happen, and something seemed to happen when they were being chased, and then one of them just disappeared, and then the other just remained alone. But then they didn't even say how they got reunited. They just magically were. I mean, I've seen many bizarre films where things seem to happen randomly, even at an even more random manner in a sense. But this, it's not random as such. This is something that probably would happen in the lives of just anyone who is sort of like that. It's a very realistic movie in a sense. It's not random in the sense that truly bizarre random things happen, because they don't as such. Well, you know, it's almost like just really not even a film. It's I've noticed documentary was used in the credits. So I mean, it's not exactly a documentary. Of course, a documentary usually does have actually more of an explanatory sort of script usually. So in a way, documentaries are even more yeah. Um, but it is very much thereabouts. I mean, it's naturalistic at best, but um, even when films are naturalistic, usually some things would happen, some events would happen. Literally, the only event that happened. I mean, one cannot say, going and punching a bag of some sort in some sort of amusement park is an event, right? So we're excluding that. Or, as at the very end, riding an artificial bull. That's not an event, obviously. That's just something people do in their spare time. Now, this is the weird thing about this. Um, Most films do have such sort of spare time things happening. But they only happen like, just occasionally, in between other events usually. Whereas this movie is all about that. All about the extras, pretty much. And just when you think something could possibly happen, when they were being chased, not a single word was said. So, and it's really strange. And yeah, here, upon googling it, it says that it's an adventure documentary. Of course, documentaries are usually even more detailed than stuff actually happens. So it's even it has even less than most documentaries do. Honestly, just does. Um, it's a weird thing. I'm not even sure what to think about this. It's so strange. One doesn't even know that this sort of stuff could happen when like if one looks at the poster image as such, this could be any poster image. There are other movies which have similar poster images, but you typically more stuff happens in such movies, so one really cannot tell when such posters have nothing happening in them. Of course, when we say nothing, I mean it's not literally nothing. Nothing comparison to most things that happen in films and movies generally, because really it's nothing pretty much. I mean, there are movies where people have a swim, but then they continue on with whatever they were doing, whether it's searching for something specific or you usually have some sort of aim, even if it's not exactly the most sort of mission, or something. I mean, I'm not talking about the ultimate aims where you have a group and you try to. I mean, but this is the opposite really of that. This is the most laid back, until the chase there. I'm not even sure why the chase was there. To be fair, it's kind of a random event in itself. I mean, it's something that presumably would really happen in real life, but I'm not sure why it was inserted, considering that I was thinking that they got one of them, and I don't know, was going to find him beat up or something, but nope, nope, not this film, nope, just reappears for some reason, and that's it. They continue on to the second amusement park. I mean, I honestly don't know what to think of it. It's a strange thing. It's sort of relaxing, but not really. I'm not even sure why it's called cormorants. We don't actually see any cormorants. I mean, they say that they see some, but the camera doesn't exactly focus on them. Camera has a lot of weird stuff. So this is the thing with this film. Really, one can mostly talk about the sort of meta technical aspects of it, rather than what actually happened, as opposed to most other films. Because it's just strange, and obviously considering that there was so little script of it, the script itself, there were so little words in the whole film really, that most of it is composed pretty much. I'm pretty sure the majority of the film is just not silence, but spaces where no one talks mostly, or they talk and the camera is a bit far away, and it just hovers over them, and as such, it doesn't really catch any words. I don't know why they do that. Like they did it at one point when they were talking to a couple of females at the end in the second amusement park. I'm not entirely sure why though. I guess it's all about impression, I suppose. But what impression should one get? This sort of thing. It's a strange one. I mean, one can compare it with some of the movies, but still not quite there. Um, I mean, one can compare it with what was it called? What was it called? Gumbo, I think, or something. I'm not entirely sure. Let me check. But even this other movie that I have in mind, I don't think it is that had more events though. It really did. Um, and yet it didn't. I mean, it's still random. Um, this is honestly one of the most fluffy films I've ever seen. And yeah, I was thinking of so-called Gummo, which is a much earlier movie, really, 1997 as opposed to 2016 apparently. Um, but even then, I mean, really not much happens at all. It's similar in its aimlessness, and in trying to depict something, but it is effectively more cruel, I guess one could say. I don't know, but um, because they're cruel to animals and such, whereas this doesn't happen in cormorants. Um, but even I mean, regardless of that, regardless of all the random events, it is sort of more random than the cormorants. I mean, you get someone with bunny ears or something, and that's random. but more things happen in it than the Cormorants, effectively, even though not much happens either way. Random stuff happens. I mean, it is also somewhat similar to, I suppose, David Lynch or such, I think. Although I haven't exactly seen much of his, but I think there was literally some short called Rabbits or something, sort of random as well. Um, but even in comparison to this, which is pretty random and not much happens either, but this surpasses Gummo in the nothing happening department. Maybe not quite in the random department, but still. Now I noticed the few reviews that are on IMDb are very critical generally. They call it a waste of time, etc. One of them even says that it's just brings them close to death. I mean, personally, I've seen many other movies though that I thought this was a waste of time. I mean, because of course a movie can be empty even if it has a whole script, right? It just can. Um, so just because this doesn't have much of a script, doesn't mean much. No, does it? Um, but somehow that people thought that this film specifically is the one that brings him close to death. Personally, I've seen many movies that have even been, box office huge successes, or even critically acclaimed movies that I personally didn't like so much, and just that's it, isn't it? Um, but then you get others like uh, so-called 3030, which I just realized it rhymes. I'm not sure why I didn't realize it before. Maybe I never actually. Anyway, and that's a movie which is full of people saying stuff, but I came out of it feeling like I've wasted so much time, and it's just a constant party. So I mean, I don't know what's better to look at, a party or some grass and water, or even there were some amusement parks just for less time. So, but honestly, what's better? To not have as much of a script, to be close to naturalism as possible, like the Cormorants was, or have a script with people saying nonsense, people doing artificial stuff. So in a way, it's opposite. This is more naturalistic. That was entirely artificial. Of course, all movies in the end are artificial, but it depends on how close to naturalism they are, really. But yeah, I mean, personally, I find that I've seen many other movies where I mean, obviously there is a difference. So I mean, if these three reviewers are used to, I don't know, action movies. I mean, personally, I find them the most hollow as well. And they themselves barely have a script usually. But sure enough, there is action happening as opposed to people just slowly walking by, across some water, and then a bit more. Just the camera stays there a bit more, looking over the water and the grass. So in the Cormorants, you get two factors. You get not much happening between the characters, and within the environment, it's still not much happening. I mean, we don't get to see animals fighting each other or something. We don't even get to see humans fighting each other, for that matter. just chasing each other for some reason. I'm not saying that's the most brilliant bit. I'm not even sure why it was there, but otherwise, still, I mean, I still like some sort of story. I like stories, but the cinematography, I suppose one can say, is just, you know, it has a certain magical quality to it, doesn't it? So, there is no artificial story, but there is a as naturalistic as possible uh, thing. Not even sure what it is. It's a thing. It's technically not a documentary, but it's close to a documentary. Someone called it realistic cinema, apparently. So yeah, the reviews on IMDb don't like it at all. I mean, there's only three anyway, so it's not exactly a popular movie. So you know, it's a small sample size anyway. People criticizing it. But then there's a site here called filmatique.com, and there's a bunch of reviews that it collates, and they're all positive. So it's remarkable. I'm not sure if they just posted positive reviews, but I do agree with many of them. They do hype it a bit much, a bit more than I do myself. But it's not too bad, I suppose. Like someone describes it here as an enchanting succession of paintings that animate the screen. I suppose it makes sense, doesn't it? And sure enough, sometimes you can have the same thing and a story, which in a way is better. If you have the same thing in a story, then of course it depends on what the story is. I mean, I've seen movies where they're also set in the countryside, etc. But it's a horror story, so you cannot quite enjoy the countryside, can you? Yeah, I think Witchfinder General was like that, and of course it's incredibly bloody. So just different sort of things. If you have a story, then the story sort of takes over often. That's the whole point of a story. Whereas with this, I mean, we can get just the views with no one there at all, but then it will be even emptier, you know. But we can either get that, or we can get a story which takes over, or we can get more of a script, but then it could take over just a bit more as well, even if it's not a proper story. So there are a variety of things that one can do, but this particular director decided to do this specifically. I've noticed he only ever directed this one feature length film. Other than that, there was just one short. Other than this one, other than these two, though, he was only an editor. Apparently, he is mostly an editor. So I guess we can see the influence there in the edits. Although I mean, also to be fair, if there were no edits at all, it would be even more naturalistic. As it is, there were a few edits. It still sort of looks upon the views, but sometimes it edits, and goes from one scene to another and within the same space and such. In a way, if it didn't do that, it would be even more naturalistic. So it's a strange movie. I mean, I honestly don't know what to make of it, but I cannot say I didn't enjoy it. I mean, there are movies which have cost millions, many many millions, and made even more millions that I didn't like even more than this. I cannot say I didn't like this, but it's more of a neutral sort of thing, though. I mean, I cannot say I really really enjoyed it. It's one of those things. It's a strange little movie. I think we can conclude. also called Strani. That is the there's some sort of film company that made it called Strani something, Strani Film, I think. And Strani is literally strange in Italian, so I suppose that really does match it. I mean, it's not strange in the sense that, as I say, that it has random, strange, wild things, but it's wild in the naturalistic sense, in the literally just, you know, I mean, it would be even more natural per se if it didn't have, the amusement parks and such. But it did because we're not just gazing at nature, we're also observing for some reason these two. And these two decided to go to the amusement park at some point, so there the movie went. Just and one of the reviews linked from that film attack site that I mentioned earlier, it uses this interesting. Well, the whole review is interesting, really. Although it is in the native Italian, so I'm quite. But it uses these few words that I think were interesting. Um, where were they? Yeah. As if shipwrecked in an extended present. The director's cinema seems to be struggling with time, all aimed at capturing fragments of reality to be informed in drawing, which welcomes and confuses cinematographic genres. Well, actually, with regards to genres that I'm not entirely sure about, but that's quite interesting, I thought. Shipwrecked in an everlasting present. That's interesting way to put it. Of course, it's sort of like a canvas, so it's not exactly anything prescribed or such, So some movies are vague, so people can think whatever they want about them. Other movies, though, barely have even that vagueness, so people can just sort of like a blank wall, just paint whatever you want to paint, or even just a splash of colors, all sorts of colors, and people see whatever they want to see. If there's truly something to see, obviously it did also get some negative reviews. It's to be expected, I suppose. Um, I am interested in reading the both, I suppose, but the negative ones aren't really saying much that's different, so not very interesting in that sense. This is obviously it's the one thing that they're saying about having no script and such, which is, as I said, to be expected. I mean, it's one of those things. If it did have a script, then it wouldn't even be this movie. It would be some other movie, and those kind of movies already exist a lot. So might as well do one of these movies as well.